Ladies, let me ask you something when you speak to a man. Are you trying to win or are you trying to connect? Because there's a massive difference between those two goals. You see, communication isn't just about words, it's about energy, it's about intention, and most importantly, it's about emotional alignment. A high-value woman knows this. She doesn't speak to a man to manipulate, guilt trip, or control him. No, she speaks to inspire, to connect, and to elevate both of them in the conversation. First, authenticity. You can't fake being real, ladies. Men can smell inauthenticity from miles away. If you're pretending to be someone you're not, if you're wearing a mask just to get his attention, trust me, it'll crumble. A high-value woman owns who she is, flaws, strengths, quirks, everything, and guess what? That authenticity is magnetic. Second, emotional intelligence. Look, men aren't mind readers, and neither are you. When you're upset, communicate it with clarity, not chaos. Instead of saying, you never listen to me, try, hey, I feel unheard right now. Can we talk about this? See the difference? One creates a fight, the other invites connection. Third, respect. Respect isn't about submission, it's about understanding boundaries, yours and his. Speak in a way that honors both. Don't belittle him, don't cut him down, even when you're frustrated. A high-value woman knows how to address concerns without attacking character. Fourth, the art of listening. You want a man to open up to you. Then make him feel safe enough to do so. When he speaks, don't listen just to reply, listen to understand. Lean in, nod, repeat back what you heard. When a man feels heard, he feels valued. And when he feels valued, he'll move mountains for you. Fifth, clarity and kindness. Words are tools, and a high-value woman uses them wisely. She doesn't throw verbal grenades in an argument. Instead, she speaks calmly, directly, and compassionately. If something bothers you, address it. Don't bottle it up and explode later. And finally, inspiration over control. Ladies, you can't make a man change, but you can inspire him to want to grow with you. Men follow energy. If your words are filled with encouragement, if your tone radiates belief in him, he will rise to meet that energy every single time. So here's the bottom line. A high-value woman communicates not to win, not to control, but to connect and inspire. And in doing so, she doesn't just earn love, she earns respect, loyalty, and admiration. Because remember this, ladies, the way you speak isn't just heard, it's felt. And when your words feel right, love isn't far behind. Let's raise our standards in how we communicate. Because powerful relationships are built one conversation at a time. You know, one of the most powerful things a woman can bring into any interaction, whether it's with a man, in her career, or even with herself, is authenticity. It's such a simple word, yet it carries so much weight. And let me tell you something, authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's not about having every word rehearsed, every flaw hidden, or every emotion polished until it shines. No, it's about showing up real. Showing up as you. Here's the truth men are wired to detect inauthenticity. Call it instinct, call it intuition, but when a man senses that a woman is putting on a performance, whether it's pretending to be overly agreeable, acting uninterested to play hard to get, or suppressing her real thoughts and feelings just to avoid confrontation, he pulls back. And why wouldn't he? Because deep down, we all crave something real. We all want connection, not manipulation. A high-value woman understands that her power doesn't lie in being what she thinks he wants, it lies in being undeniably herself. Because let's face it, the world is full of noise. Social media tells women, say this line, act this way, play this game. But those strategies might get his attention, they'll never get his devotion. True attraction, true connection happens when two people feel safe enough to be seen by each other. So how does this play out in conversation? It starts with honesty, not the kind of brutal honesty where you just blurt out whatever crosses your mind without consideration, but the kind of honesty that comes from a place of self-awareness. A high-value woman doesn't hide behind vague statements or passive-aggressive comments. If something bothers her, she says it with clarity. If she's excited, she lets that shine through. And if she's vulnerable, she doesn't see that as weakness. She understands that vulnerability is actually the gateway to intimacy. Let me paint a scenario for you. Imagine a woman is on a date with a guy she really likes. He makes a comment that rubs her the wrong way. And an authentic response might be to laugh it off, to push her feelings down, or to start acting cold and distant without ever explaining why. But a woman who's tapped into her authenticity, She might say something like, hey, I don't know if you meant it this way, but that comment didn't sit well with me. That's real. That's honest. And you know what? Men respect that. Because here's the secret: when you're authentic, you're giving the other person permission to be authentic too. It creates this mutual space where guards can come down and real conversations can happen. A man doesn't want to spend time decoding mixed signals or navigating emotional minefields. He wants to know who you are, what you feel, and where he stands with you. But authenticity isn't just about how you express negative emotions. It's also about expressing joy, gratitude, and admiration freely. So many women hold back compliments or affection because they think it'll make them look too eager or too available. But that's nonsense. If you admire something about a man, say it. If he makes you laugh, let yourself laugh fully. That's the kind of energy that draws people in. It's genuine, it's unfiltered, and it's magnetic. Here's something else you need to remember: authenticity requires self-trust. You have to trust that you are enough, that your opinions matter, that your quirks are lovable, that your feelings are valid. Because if you don't believe that, you'll always feel the need to wear a mask. And trust me, wearing a mask is exhausting. It's like holding your breath in every conversation. When you embrace authenticity, something shifts in your energy. Conversations flow differently. You stop overthinking every word you say. You stop worrying about whether he likes you. And you start focusing on whether you like him. And that subtle shift, it's incredibly attractive. At the end of the day, the most high-value thing you can bring to any interaction is the truth of who you are. No pretense, no games, just you. Because the right man won't just love you for your polished moments, he'll love you for your raw, unfiltered, genuine self. And that kind of connection isn't just rare, it's life-changing. Emotional intelligence now, that's a term we hear a lot these days, isn't it? But let me tell you, this isn't just some trendy buzzword. This is one of the most powerful tools a woman can have in her communication toolkit, especially when talking to a man. And here's why emotions are the undercurrent of every conversation. You can have all the right words lined up, but if the emotions behind those words are chaotic, unclear, or misaligned, the message gets lost. You see, emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's not about pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about being aware of your emotions, understanding them, and then expressing them in a way that invites connection, not conflict. That's the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is raw, unfiltered. It's like throwing emotional grenades into the conversation. But a response, that's deliberate, intentional, and grounded in self-awareness. Let me give you an example. Let's say you've been waiting all day for your man to call you back and he doesn't. When he finally does, an emotionally reactive response might be something like, oh, so now you decide to call. Must be nice to have such a busy life that you can't take 2 minutes from me now. Is that an honest feeling? Sure, but does it invite connection? Not at all. An emotionally intelligent response, on the other hand, might sound more like, hey, I was looking forward to hearing from you today, and when I didn't, I felt a little unimportant. Can we talk about it? Do you see the difference? The first one attacks, the second one shares. The first one puts him on the defensive. The second one opens the door for an honest conversation. Men aren't as naturally attuned to emotional nuances as women are. That's just biology. But what they do pick up on almost instinctively is the emotional tone behind your words. If your tone feels like an attack, even if your words are technically polite, he'll shut down or fight back. But if your tone feels safe, calm, and genuine, he'll lean in. And here's something important to understand: men are problem solvers by nature. If you share your feelings in a way that sounds like a puzzle to be solved rather than a bomb to be diffused, he'll want to engage. He'll want to help. But if he feels cornered or criticized, his instinct will be to defend himself, not connect with you. Now let's talk about vulnerability, because emotional intelligence and vulnerability go hand in hand. A high-value woman knows how to balance strength and softness in her communication. She doesn't wear her emotions on her sleeve for the world to see, but she also doesn't build walls so high that no one can reach her. Vulnerability is saying, I feel hurt, instead of you're such a jerk. It's saying, I miss you, instead of why don't you care about me? You see, vulnerability invites trust. And trust is the foundation of every strong relationship. But vulnerability requires courage. It requires you to risk being seen, even when it's uncomfortable. And that's where emotional intelligence really shines. It helps you stay grounded even when your emotions are running high. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is knowing when to pause. You don't have to respond in the heat of the moment. Sometimes the most emotionally intelligent thing you can do is say, I need a moment to process this before we talk about it. Because let's face it, when emotions are boiling over, clarity goes out the window. Taking a moment to breathe, to reflect, and to come back to the conversation with intention. That's emotional mastery. And let me add, this emotional intelligence isn't just about your emotions, it's also about recognizing his. A high-value woman knows how to read between the lines to sense when he's pulling back because he's overwhelmed, or when he's being quiet because he's processing something. Instead of jumping to conclusions or assuming the worst, she asks, hey, is everything okay? You seem a little distant. That small shift from assuming to asking can change everything. Because when a man feels like you see him, not just his actions, but his emotional state, he feels safe with you. And when a man feels safe, he opens up. So here's the bottom line: emotional intelligence isn't about being perfect or always calm. It's about being aware. It's about recognizing your emotional triggers, owning your feelings, and communicating them in a way that builds bridges instead of walls. It's about creating a space where both of you can show up, not as two people trying to win a conversation, but as two people trying to understand each other better. And that right there is where love grows. In that space of emotional safety, vulnerability, and intentional communication, true connection becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Respect is one of those words we throw around a lot, isn't it? But what does it really mean in the context of communication between a high-value woman and a man? Respect isn't just about politeness or surface-level niceties. It's not about walking on eggshells to avoid offending someone, nor is it about agreeing with everything he says to keep the peace. True respect is about recognizing value, your value, his value, is value, and the value of the connection you're building together. You see, respect is a two-way street. And let me tell you, a high-value woman doesn't just demand respect, she embodies it. She sets the tone in her interactions by showing respect first, respect for herself, for her boundaries, and for the man she's speaking to. Because if you don't respect yourself, you're sending an unspoken message to him that he doesn't have to either. One of the most common mistakes people make in conversations is communicating from a place of ego rather than connection. Ego says, I have to win this argument. I have to prove I'm right. I have to make him see things my way. But respect says, let me hear your perspective. Let me share mine without belittling yours. Let me create space for understanding. A high-value woman knows how to share her opinions and assert her boundaries without disrespecting his perspective. And let me be clear, asserting your boundaries doesn't make you aggressive. It makes you clear. For example, if he does something that crosses a line, a disrespectful approach might sound like, you always do this, you never care about how I feel. But a respectful approach might be, hey, I felt hurt by what happened earlier. I value our connection, and I'd love to talk about how we can avoid that in the future. Do you feel the difference? The first approach feels like an attack, a criticism. The second feels like an invitation to improve together. And let me tell you something about men: they respond to respect. They lean in when they feel valued, not condemned. But here's the tricky part: respect isn't just about how you speak during good conversations, it's about how you handle the difficult ones. Anyone can be respectful when everything's going smoothly, but the true test comes when emotions are high and the conversation gets tough. A high-value woman knows that disrespect, sarcasm, name-calling, eye-rolling, or dismissive comments can inflict wounds that are hard to heal. Now, don't misunderstand me. Being respectful doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It doesn't mean you let someone walk all over you. Quite the opposite. Respect means you speak up when something feels off, but you do it in a way that preserves the dignity of both people involved. Let's talk about listening for a moment, because listening is one of the most powerful ways to show respect in a conversation. When a man is sharing his thoughts, feelings, or even his frustrations, a high-value woman doesn't interrupt, dismiss, or roll her eyes. She doesn't listen just to formulate her next comeback, she listens to understand. And guess what? That simple act of truly listening creates a ripple effect. When he feels heard, he's far more likely to reciprocate that same level of respect when it's her turn to speak. Another key aspect of respect is trust. A high-value woman respects a man enough to give him space to lead in certain areas while still honoring her own voice and contributions. She doesn't micromanage him, she doesn't talk down to him, and she doesn't treat him like he's incapable. Instead, she communicates with a tone that says, I see you, I trust you, and I believe in your ability to handle this. But let's flip the script for a moment, because respect also means expecting respect and respect in return. A high-value woman knows when a line has been crossed, and she's not afraid to call it out. If a man consistently speaks to her in a way that feels dismissive, condescending, or hurtful, she doesn't sweep it under the rug. She addresses it calmly, directly, and with strength. She might say something like, I feel disrespected when you speak to me that way, and I can't accept that. I'm happy to continue this conversation when we can both speak respectfully to each other. That right there is power. That's self-respect in action. And let me tell you, men notice this. They notice when a woman carries herself with an energy that says, I respect myself too much to settle for anything less. At the end of the day, respect isn't just about the words you choose, it's about the energy behind them. It's about speaking with integrity, listening with patience, and standing firm in your boundaries without aggression. And when a high-value woman communicates with respect both for herself and for him, it creates a foundation of trust, safety, and mutual admiration. Because here's the truth, men are drawn to women who elevate them, not diminish them. And respect. Respect is one of the greatest ways to elevate any relationship, romantic, professional, or personal. When respect becomes the standard, love doesn't just grow, it thrives. Listening, it seems so simple, doesn't it? Yet, it's one of the most underrated and misunderstood skills in communication. Especially when it comes to building a deep connection between a woman and a man. Listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding, it's about feeling, and most importantly, it's about making the other person feel seen and valued. A high-value woman knows that listening isn't just something you do with your ears, it's something you do with your presence, your energy, and your intention. Here's the thing, men communicate differently than women. While women often express themselves to connect emotionally, men tend to communicate to solve problems or share information. And sometimes those two styles clash. A man might not always come out and say, I'm struggling with something or I need support. Instead, he might withdraw, get quiet, or talk about things indirectly. A high-value woman understands this, and instead of jumping to conclusions or making assumptions, she listens not just to his words, but to the spaces between them. She listens to his tone, his body language, and his silences. You see, most people listen with one goal in mind to respond. They're formulating their next sentence while the other person is still speaking. But listening isn't about waiting for your turn to talk. It's about being fully present. When a man speaks, he's not just sharing words, he's sharing a piece of his world, a piece of his mind, and sometimes even a piece of his soul. And when a woman can sit in that space with him without interrupting, without judging, and without trying to fix everything, it creates something powerful. It creates trust. Let me share a scenario with you. Imagine a man comes home from work and he seems distant. He says something vague like, it's just been a long day now. An unskilled listener might jump in and say, well, we all have long days. You'll get over it. Or worse, they might take his mood personally and say, why are you always in a bad mood around me, but a high-value woman? She pauses. She notices. She might say something like, hey, you seem a little off today. Do you want to talk about it? I'm here if you do. Do you see the difference? One approach shuts him down while the other invites him in. Men often need space to process their emotions before they can articulate them. A woman who listens deeply creates an environment where he feels safe enough to share. And safety, my friend, is everything in a relationship. Another powerful aspect of listening is validation. Validation doesn't mean you have to agree with everything he says, but it does mean acknowledging his feelings is real and valid. Sometimes men just need to feel understood without being immediately offered a solution. If he's venting about something at work, instead of immediately suggesting 5 ways to fix the problem, she might simply say, that sounds really frustrating. I can understand why you feel that way. Do you know what happens when you do that? He feels heard, he feels respected, and most importantly, he feels connected to you. Now, let's talk about nonverbal listening, because it's just as important, if not more so, than the words you use. Eye contact, nodding, leaning in slightly when he's talking, these small cues tell him, I'm here. I'm with you. You have my full attention. In a world full of distractions, phones buzzing, emails piling up, and screens glowing, undivided attention is one of the greatest gifts you can give someone. But here's the part most people miss: listening also requires curiosity. A high-value woman isn't afraid to ask follow-up questions. If he shares a story about his childhood, she might ask, how did that experience shape you? If he talks about his dreams, she might ask, what excites you most about that goal? Curiosity shows care. It shows investment. And it deepens the conversation in ways most surface-level chatter never can. Now, don't get me wrong, listening doesn't mean you silence your own voice. It doesn't mean you become a passive participant in the conversation. No, it means you balance speaking and listening in a way that feels natural and fluid. You share, you listen, and you create a rhythm of communication that feels effortless. But perhaps the most important part of listening is remembering. When a man tells you something meaningful, whether it's a story from his past, a goal for his future, or even just his favorite movie, and you bring it up later, it tells him, I was listening. I care. What you said matters to me. That little act of remembering creates a bond that's hard to break. At the end of the day, listening isn't passive, it's an active skill. It requires intention, focus, and care. And when a high-value woman listens to a man, not just with her ears, but with her heart, something incredible happens. He feels safe. And a man who feels safe will open up, lean in, and invest in the connection in ways you never thought possible. Because here's the truth: people don't remember every word you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And when you make a man feel heard, valued, and respected, you're not just building a conversation, you're building a connection that can stand the test of time. Confidence is magnetic, it's captivating, and it's one of the most powerful tools a woman can bring to her conversations with a man. But let me be clear, confidence isn't about being loud, overly assertive, or trying to dominate every interaction. No, true confidence is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in self-assurance. It's an energy, a presence. It's the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, and the way you honor your own voice in every interaction. A confident woman doesn't shrink to make others feel comfortable, nor does she inflate herself to prove her worth. She simply is. And that energy is undeniable. Let's start with this. A confident woman knows her value. She doesn't need constant external validation to feel secure in who she is, because she's already validated herself internally. This doesn't mean she doesn't appreciate compliments or positive feedback, but her sense of worth isn't dependent on them. And let me tell you, men feel this difference. When a woman speaks from a place of internal confidence rather than external approval seeking, her words carry a different weight. They have an energy behind them that says, I know who I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin. Now, one of the ways confidence shines through in communication is through clarity. A confident woman knows what she wants to say, and she says it without excessive apologies, hesitation, or self-doubt. Have you ever heard someone start a sentence with, sorry, but can I just say something, or this might sound stupid, but these little phrases undermine the message before it's even delivered? A confident woman removes those unnecessary disclaimers. Instead of saying, sorry, but can I share my opinion, she says, I'd love to share my perspective on this. Instead of saying, this might sound silly, but she says, here's what I think. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. Tone, body language, and eye contact all communicate confidence before you even utter a word. A high-value woman speaks with a steady voice, maintains eye contact without staring someone down, and carries herself with posture that reflects self-respect. She doesn't fidget excessively or shrink into herself. She occupies her space with intention. But let's address something important here. Confidence isn't arrogance. Confidence says, I know my worth. Arrogance says, I'm better than you and trust me. Men can sense the difference a mile away. Arrogance pushes people away, but confidence draws them in. A confident woman doesn't feel the need to one-up a man in conversation or prove she's smarter, stronger, or more capable. She knows her value, and because of that, she's not threatened by his strengths, she celebrates them. Another hallmark of confidence is the ability to handle disagreement or criticism without crumbling or becoming overly defensive. A confident woman can hear feedback, whether it's delivered gracefully or not, and evaluate it without immediately taking it as an attack on her character. If a man disagrees with her opinion, she doesn't feel the need to bulldoze him into agreement. Instead, she listens, evaluates, and responds with composure. She might say something like, I hear where you're coming from, but I see it differently, and here's why. Notice how that response keeps her dignity intact while still holding her ground. Confidence also shows up in the ability to say no. A high-value woman knows that no is a complete sentence. She doesn't over-explain or apologize excessively when she sets a boundary. If something doesn't align with her values, her time, or her emotional energy, she declines with grace but firmness. And let me tell you, men respect this. They might not always like hearing no, but they will respect a woman who knows her limits and isn't afraid to honor them. Now let's talk about vulnerability, because confidence and vulnerability are two sides of the same coin. A confident woman isn't afraid to show her softer side. She's not afraid to say, that hurt me, or I'm feeling nervous about this. You see, true confidence isn't about being bulletproof, it's about being authentic. When a woman is confident enough to let her guard down in the right moments, it creates a powerful connection. Because here's the truth: strength without vulnerability can feel cold and distant, but when the two come together, it creates warmth, trust, and intimacy. Another key to confidence in communication is embracing silence. A confident woman isn't afraid of pauses in a conversation. She doesn't rush to fill every gap with nervous chatter. She understands that silence can be powerful, that it gives space for thought, reflection, and connection. Sometimes the most confident response is simply to pause, take a breath, and let the conversation settle before speaking again. Lastly, confidence means being unapologetically yourself. A high-value woman doesn't mold herself into someone she thinks a man wants her to be. She doesn't dim her light to make him feel brighter. She shows up as herself fully, boldly, and without pretense. And let me tell you, that's incredibly attractive. When a man sees a woman who isn't afraid to be herself, it creates a magnetic pull that's impossible to ignore. At the end of the day, confidence isn't about perfection. It's not about having all the answers or never feeling insecure. It's about trusting yourself enough to show up authentically, to speak your truth with clarity, and to hold your ground with grace. And when a woman brings that kind of confidence into her conversations with a man, it doesn't just earn his respect, it earns his admiration. Because confidence isn't just something you say, it's something you live. And that, my friend, is unforgettable. Emotional intelligence, it's not just a buzzword, it's the foundation of powerful communication and meaningful connection. For a high-value woman, emotional intelligence isn't optional, it's essential. It's the ability to not only understand and manage her own emotions, but also to recognize and respond to the emotions of the man she's communicating with. You see, most people think communication is just about words, but the truth is, words are only the surface layer. Underneath every word, every pause, every tone of voice, there's an emotional current running through the conversation. A high-value woman knows how to navigate that current with grace, wisdom, and care. Let's start with self-awareness, which is the foundation of emotional intelligence. A high-value woman is in tune with her emotions. She doesn't ignore them, suppress them, or let them run the show uncontrollably. She's aware of her triggers, her patterns, and her emotional responses. If she's upset about something, she takes a moment to pause and ask herself, why am I feeling this way? What's really going on here? That pause, that reflection makes all the difference. It allows her to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Imagine a scenario where a man says something that unintentionally hurts her feelings. An emotionally reactive response might sound like, wow, I can't believe you'd say that. Do you even care about me? But an emotionally intelligent response might sound like, hey, what you just said didn't sit well with me. It made me feel hurt, and I wanted to share that with you. Do you see the difference? One response escalates the conflict, while the other opens the door for resolution and connection. But emotional intelligence isn't just about managing your own emotions, it's about being attuned to his as well. A high-value woman doesn't just hear what a man is saying, she senses what he's feeling. If he's withdrawn, distracted, or short with his answers, she doesn't immediately jump to conclusions like he must not care about me anymore. Instead, she approaches with curiosity and empathy. She might say, you seem a little distant today. Is everything okay? Do you want to talk about it? That kind of emotional awareness creates a safe space for him to open up without fear of being judged or criticized. Empathy is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence, and it's one of the most powerful tools a high-value woman has in her communication toolkit. Empathy isn't about fixing his problems or feeling his emotions for him. It's about understanding them. It's about being able to step into his shoes, even for a moment, and see the world from his perspective. When a man feels truly understood by a woman, it builds a level of trust and connection that's hard to replicate. Another crucial aspect of emotional intelligence is emotional regulation. Let's be honest, emotions can be intense. Frustration, anger, disappointment, they're all natural human responses. But the key difference lies in how those emotions are expressed. An emotionally intelligent woman knows that blowing up in anger or giving a silent treatment doesn't resolve conflict, it amplifies it. Instead, she expresses her emotions in a way that's constructive rather than destructive. She might say, I'm feeling really frustrated right now and I need a moment to collect my thoughts before we continue this conversation. It's emotional mastery. It's knowing when to pause, when to speak, and how to communicate in a way that builds bridges rather than burning them. Let's talk about boundaries for a moment because they're deeply connected to emotional intelligence. A high-value woman understands that boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines for healthy interaction. She communicates her needs and limits with clarity and kindness without fear of how they'll be received. She might say, I need us to have conversations like this in a calm tone because I shut down when voices are raised. That's not being demanding, that's being emotionally intelligent. It's recognizing her own emotional triggers and communicating them proactively. But emotional intelligence also means recognizing when a man might not have the same level of emotional awareness. Let's face it, some men aren't naturally wired to articulate their feelings easily. A high-value woman doesn't shame him for that. She doesn't say, why can't you just open up to me? Instead, she creates an environment where he feels safe to do so. She listens without interrupting, validates his emotions without judgment, and lets him know it's okay to feel vulnerable in her presence. And let's not forget emotional resilience, the ability to handle emotional setbacks without letting them define the relationship. A high-value woman knows that misunderstandings and disagreements are part of any connection. Instead of spiraling into self-doubt or assuming the worst, she approaches challenges with a mindset of growth and resolution. She asks questions like, how can we move forward from this? What can we learn from this moment? But perhaps the most important aspect of emotional intelligence is emotional generosity. A high-value woman doesn't keep score in her relationships. She doesn't say, well, I listened to you yesterday, so you owe me today. She gives emotionally her attention, her care, her support, because she knows that love and connection thrive in environments of abundance, not scarcity. At the end of the day, emotional intelligence isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about showing up to conversations with self-awareness, empathy, and a genuine desire to connect. And here's the beautiful thing, when a high-value woman communicates with emotional intelligence, it inspires the man she's speaking with to do the same. It sets a standard, it creates trust, and it builds a foundation where love, respect, and understanding can flourish. Because emotional intelligence isn't just something you have, it's something you practice. And when it's practiced consistently, it transforms not just conversations, but entire relationships. At the heart of it all, communication isn't just about the words we speak, it's about the energy, intention, and authenticity we bring to every interaction. A high-value woman understands that the way she speaks to a man isn't about manipulation or playing games, it's about connection, respect, and mutual growth. She knows that her words have power not just to inform, but to inspire, to heal, and to build trust. When she speaks with clarity and purpose, she earns his attention. When she listens with presence and empathy, she earns his trust. When she expresses herself with vulnerability and confidence, she earns his respect. And when she communicates with emotional intelligence, she creates an environment where both people can feel safe, seen, and deeply valued. But let me tell you this, none of these principles are about changing who you are. They're about refining how you show up. They're about stepping into your power as a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to express it. They're about building a relationship dynamic where both partners feel respected, heard, and loved. At the end of the day, men, just like women, are seeking connection. They want to feel respected, appreciated, and understood. And when a high-value woman communicates in a way that fosters these feelings, it doesn't just create love, it creates lasting love. So remember this, the words you choose, the way you listen, the way you carry yourself, they all leave an impact. Communication isn't just a skill, it's a reflection of your inner world. And when you master the art of speaking to a man with authenticity, confidence, and emotional intelligence, you're not just earning his love, you're inspiring it. And that, my friend, is how you create a connection that stands the test of time.